Happy 2023. So excited to see you, or I guess you see me in the new year. So, welcome back. In case we haven't met yet, my name is Courtney Louie, yoga mats, and I thought today would be a really fun time to talk about setting your intentions for the year. So, feel free to comment if you like to set resolutions, you like to set goals. I don't know about you, I am a crazy big fan of the new year. There's just something magical about that change. I know the date's made up, but it totally does something for me. And it's just exciting starting fresh and thinking about how do I want to do things differently? What do I want to focus on? And a big thing that I know I've been leaning into, and I know some of us have talked about last year, I guess a few weeks ago, is the idea of choosing a focus for the year. Personally, I think resolutions are great, they have their place, but I really like choosing a word or a phrase to focus on for the year. To me, that's been more empowering to really focus in on my priorities, how I want to make decisions, things like that. So recently I shared with the Coffee Chats and Yoga Mats community, Tribe Beloved, some personality tips about ways you can actually set your intentions, more so how to even come up with what would be a good fit for you. And I thought it'd be fun to share it with you all because recently I just shared a post with some images, but sometimes reading images doesn't work for everyone. So I thought we'd dive into that. So definitely comment if you've got questions, ahas, concerns, whatnot. Let's talk. Sounds like fun. So, warning, I did write a post about this, so I'm going to be skimming over and checking it, using it as a reference point. I think it's pretty great, but I'm kind of biased. So, the thing is, sometimes when you're feeling so overwhelmed, you feel like you don't have enough bandwidth for everything. That's where having a focus, an intention that you want to focus on during the year, for the quarter, for the month, for the week, whatever it is, can sometimes help you take a deep breath and relax. So that's what we'll be digging into. And I can't guarantee this will make all your stressors go away because stress is a part of life, and I'm really sorry about that. But it can be good for you in some ways, just like physical fitness. When you're lifting weights, that's actually a very healthy stress for your body. It pushes your body to grow and become stronger. So anyway, we could go on down that rabbit trail, but we're not going to do that. But like I said, while I can't guarantee this discussion will make all your struggles, all your challenges go away, I would love to help you start setting your intentions for the year, or even the month, or the quarter, whatever works best for you. Because who knows, it's January 5, you may not be there yet. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about what does that even mean. So basically, when you're setting your intentions, you're really trying to get clear on what your top priorities are, or choosing a focus word or idea to drive your decision making. And you've got two different ways to approach it, and you can always do a blend. First of all, is narrowing down all the things to what are your top priorities. So what really matters most to you in the season you're in. At the end of the day, what will you be most glad you focused on? So let's say, at work, you've got a huge project, big undertaking you're focusing on, and that's your thing, and that's your priority. It doesn't mean you don't do other parts of your job, but that's really the overarching thing you want to focus on. It might be really investing in your relationships at home. It may be taking the time to really focus on improving how you care for your body. Whatever that is, you're just basically narrowing down all the things. I know you probably got this max daddy list to what are your top priorities, the things you really want to focus on. And then option 2 is giving yourself a focus word or idea to drive your decision making. So for instance, I've talked about this before, but like 2022, I chose courage because I had a lot of changes coming up and I really wanted to push myself to be brave and do the hard thing. And sometimes the hard thing may not seem like a hard thing to someone else, but it was for me. And so that was really helpful throughout the beginning of the year when I remembered it, to really take action and move forward and try to be bold and do something. Choose courage. It was really empowering. And then at the end of the year, when I remembered I had it, that was really helpful. Previously, I focused on intentional grace. So that meant like accepting God's grace, giving grace to myself, and trying to offer grace to others. Obviously, as a Christian, that is a lifelong thing, but that was something I knew I really need to focus on. And we can keep going on and on. But basically, we'll narrow it down again. So 2 different ways you can focus on when you're choosing your intentions is you can narrow it down to from everything to what are your top priorities. I'd even say just like 5 or less, because it can't really be top priorities if you've got like a list of 20, right? And the other option is giving yourself a focus word or an idea to drive your decision making. And just a reminder, I love dropping scripture in there, but like Paul talked about to the Philippians, is that it's important to be intentional with our thoughts. So Philippians 4:8, as he says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And isn't that an exciting thing if you think about that, what that can mean in your own life and your thought life, how you approach making your decisions, moving forward? Just like it's a developing that intentional muscle is a great thing. So, and we're also taking at it from a personality perspective. So, what is personality in the first place? And I apologize if this is a little too much review, but I figured it's better to be cautious, right? So, personality, according to dictionary.com, is the combination of characteristics or qualities that form an individual's distinctive character. And you can call it your nature, your disposition, your temperament, persona, psyche, identity. There's a lot of different terms. Basically, it's all those different little bits that come together that make up you, which is really awesome. And from this perspective at Coffee Chats and Yoga Mats, you have a God-given personality. It is something that he has uniquely equipped you with to impact the world, to glorify him, and to enjoy. It's a gift he gave to you. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel that way. And I totally get that. I've been there. Sometimes I live there. But just something to consider. So if you're keeping that in mind, what it looks like, for instance, for me to set my intentions will be very different than we'll go with my husband, who has a very different personality. Not completely, but different enough. And so how does your personality affect the way you might set your intentions? A great example. So if you have sensing preferences, we're using the MBTI framework, that means you tend to really notice the things you can observe through your five senses. So that'd be, I'm going to tap my face, sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. And so you're a concrete thinker. You're really you're present to the world you live in. I know that sounds really obvious, but if you're intuitive, that doesn't always compute. So basically for you, setting your intentions may require being intentional about adding a sensory element to how you approach them. So perhaps, let's say you've got your special word or your phrase or your top priorities. So what that might be for you is posting visual reminders around your space about what matters most to you. Maybe you create a sticker chart or a reward jar or you incorporate a sensory element to it that helps you really remember it and enjoy it. So it's kind of exciting. And we could talk about that more. We actually will in your Authentic Intentional Life. Shameless plug. So, but basically, when you've learned to embrace what lights you up and get clear about what drags you down, you can be more strategic with your time and your energy. So that's where your personality comes in. So I've been talking a lot, and let's get cracking on this big idea about your personality. So if you haven't yet, I also have a free playbook, the Embrace Your Potential Playbook. Definitely feel free to leave a comment if you don't know how to find it, or DM me if you want some help finding it, because it'll help you identify your personality. It's a quick cheat sheet of some ideas about how you can, well, first of all, identify your personality, and also some tips to be more intentional with your time and energy. Pretty biased, but it's awesome. Okay, so let's say that we're going to talk about 4 primary personality type combos, just to keep it simpler. So some tips. Before I dive into that, I want you to know that all personality types likely want to prioritize their faith, their family, their health, but what it might look like for each type may differ a little bit. And even if you're doing exactly the same thing, the way you approach it might be different. And that's just something to keep in mind. What motivates you to, care for your health might be different for you if you are, let's say, a sensing perceiver versus an intuitive thinker. There's nothing right or wrong about that, but knowing what drives you, what gets you going, well, it can really change how you decide to approach it. So all of us need to value our relationship with God. That is not personality specific by any means. So some questions to consider if you are trying to figure out your priorities and focus. And I'm going to link to the post, and it's also got images in the page. So you just can't escape me. I'm everywhere. So if you're an intuitive, if you lead with intuition and feeling within the Kersey framework, that's called an idealist. And so in F, you tend to think a lot about who you're becoming. So when you're considering your priorities and your focus, you might want to ask yourself, who am I becoming right now? How would I need to shift my focus become more the person I want to be. And I know that may not be something that lights you up if you're a different personality type. But that idea of really thinking about who am I becoming right now and who do I want to become, that can really help you consider what you want to focus on. And so, for instance, for me, like I shared about intentional grace, the time I chose that, I really was hard on myself. I still struggle with that. But that was something that was really helpful for me to think about I want to become someone who is more gracious to others, more gracious to myself in a healthy, balanced way, and was more willing to accept God's grace. And that idea, who am I becoming right now? How would I need to shift to become that person, was really helpful. So, type 2, intuitive thinking. So that means you tend to lead with intuition and thinking. Again, within the Kersey framework, that means you're rational. So you tend to think a lot about where you're headed. So when you're considering your priorities and focus, you want to ask yourself, what direction am I headed in? What would help me most efficiently and effectively reach my goals? So again, they sound very similar, but if you lead with intuition and thinking, you tend to focus more about where's that path, that journey. You're very future oriented, and you want to see how you can get there with less effort. I mean, most of us don't want to waste our effort, but there's something especially about intuitive thinkers who really want to be effective and efficient. So type 3, sensing, judging. So that means you lead with sensing and you lead with judging. In the Kersey framework, I like to do a bullet to Kersey and BTI, you're a guardian. So that means you tend to enjoy reflecting on the past. You really like remembering what's happened, those good times, and even the bad times. You're just really good about remembering what's happened before. So when you're considering your future priorities and focus, you might want to ask yourself, what am I most proud of in the past several months or year? And what would I do differently or keep doing? So that's where, thinking about the past, what am I most proud of? Let's say for the past month, the year, or even further back if you want. And if you want to keep more of that in your life or build that up more, so what would you want to do differently or keep doing? So let's say if you are really proud of how active you've been about taking care of your body, you've gone to your doctor's appointments. I don't know about you, I struggle with that. But you've scheduled those appointments, you've shown up, you've been timely. Maybe that means it's something you really want to continue doing and you want to tweak it, add a little bit more. Maybe that means you try to drink more water every day. I don't know, I'm making up things right now. So the 4th personality type, sensing, perceiving. So that means you tend to lead with sensing and perceiving. In the Kersey framework, you're called an artisan. So very cool. You tend to enjoy really being present to the moment. You people just rock my world. I don't know how to do it. So when you're considering your future priorities and focus, you might want to ask yourself, what can make life more awesome? What changes do I need to make, and what can I keep doing? Again, it's very similar to the sensing judging. But you're really thinking about what's been fun. And I'm not saying people who lead with sensing perceiving are just totally playtime all the time, but it's something to consider. You tend to you just excel at being present in the moment. And so with that in mind, what would make life more awesome? And how can you inject a little bit more of that into what you're doing? So ultimately, what should you do with these tips? First of all, you probably may not remember them. So you may want to check out the post. I've got that popped on. I'll add that as a link. But another big thing to know is that there's no right or wrong way to set your intentions. And sometimes things fall flat, and that's okay. Maybe that means you need a different system to remember it better. Maybe it means that it wasn't a good fit for you. And maybe that means you just maybe hit reset, which, by the way, you can hit reset at any moment. Isn't that great? So there's no right or wrong way or setting your intentions. Again, you can always do it based off of a month, a quarter, a season, a year, whatever works best for you. Things fluctuate. But leveraging your God-given personality can really help you be more intentional about it and have more fun doing it. So your steps, if you haven't yet, determine what you need to get clear on. What are your top priorities or your focus for your statement? And feel free to ask those questions I talked about and start putting those ideas into action. I actually plan on doing several lives. We're leading up to the launch of Your Authentic Intentional Life. Pretty biased. It's going to be awesome. And I thought it'd be really fun to be sharing a little bit snippet of what you might find in the course if you choose to enroll. So stay tuned. I'll be back soon with more tips about how you can practically focus on your word of the year during the year. Because it's great in theory, but how do you live it out? So again, thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you, hearing from you. It's a little different, this one way of communication. And as always, you can live intentionally with passion and purpose as God's beloved, because you are His beloved. I look forward to seeing you next time.